Welcome to the January 7th Special Council meeting. Let's stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess, first of all, I hope you bear with me while I break into my new spot here. We need to accept a resolution accepting council member resignation and declaring a vacancy. Need a motion.
I so move. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Dave, after this, I'm going to need to take a roll call for every vote.
Okay, roll call vote.
Yeah. I'll say your name and then say aye or nay.
Okay, now the next thing is to consider appointment for the vacancy, and I would like to recommend that Aaron Herzig be appointed to fill my space.
I second it. If that's a motion,
Well, you make the motion.
I'll make a motion that Aaron Herzog fill your space.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll
Aye.
call.
Oh,
Nevin?
yeah, yeah, aye.
Yes.
Eckhats? Andrews?
Aye.
Schrupp? Aye. Okay. Motion carried.
Motion carried. Aaron, you want to come up and join us?
I'm going to have him do the oath of office.
Okay.
All right. Raise your right hand, please. Repeat this out loud.
I, Aaron Herzog, do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and discharge faithfully the duties of the office of City Council of the City of Cross Lake, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, get started. I got to read this. Public comments regarding the following topics. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given a 3-minute time limit. Constructive comments preferred. And let's try to stick to our topics that we're talking about tonight. I think we've got about 3 of them. This is a work session. It's not a regular council meeting. And the first one is the sewer. But one little thing, when we did this, the last election, I sent out a flyer that I think a lot of you got, and it was a questionnaire. And out of that questionnaire, I sent 1,050 of them out. I got about 165 back. And out of that, 70% of the responses stated that the sewer was the top priority. The next one was about 60%, and that was the property next door, acquiring that. But the sewer is what we're talking about now. I think to start it, Amy, are you ready?
You mean the water district part of it?
Yeah. I asked Amy to come tonight just to explain what a sewer district is, because I don't fully understand it, and I'm sure a lot of you don't, so if you could come up and do that?
I don't know.
So a sewer
there's no
district
button.
is a designated area of. A sewer district is a designated area of subsurface sewage treatment systems that are inspected, monitored, and maintained by the district. The purpose of creating a district is to ensure proper sewage treatment at an affordable long-term cost to the community. Most typically, they come in response to declining lake water quality and anticipated population growth.
Amy, could I interrupt you? Could you tell the folks why you're here? I mean, what you do, what your background is?
Yeah. So I am a licensed and certified sewer inspector. I own and operate my own business, so I do septic inspections of private residences, and then I also design septic systems. And then all of my information that I'm sharing tonight is from the only sewer district that is in the state of Minnesota that operates successfully, and from the University of Minnesota Extension Program for Septic Systems. So one of the things that happens is when septic systems fail, partially treated wastewater is released back into the environment, putting the natural environment and people at risk of coming into contact with that insufficiently treated wastewater. Some signs of failure can be subtle, like deterioration of lake water quality, like algae blooms, or the signs are obvious, like surfacing in your yard of sewage. Proper design, installation, operation, and maintenance ensures that the water is treated efficiently and effectively, and also helps to prevent costly repairs and replacement. So an example of, all of my examples are going to come from the Otter Tail Water Management District, which is the only one in the state that I'm aware of, and they've been operating since 1981 due to water quality declining in their lakes. So examples of what their powers and responsibilities are to set a fee structure to support the district activities, write and enforce an ordinance, inspect an inspection and monitoring program, and issue compliance orders. The steps in creating a district are just basic, would be determining status of individual systems by conducting thorough compliance inspections, conducting a survey of individual households to determine a maintenance program, and then once compliance is determined, a management plan is implemented and adhered to. And their examples are, there's an active program and there's a passive program. In a passive program, the homeowner is responsible for all maintenance and repairs. And in an active program, the district maintains the system from the tank and beyond unless the homeowner was negligent. And then an example of the fees that they charge for passive, the private residences and businesses annually pay an administration-only fee, which theirs range for residences from $40 to $50 annually, and for businesses from $40 to $300 annually. And then active plans, residential range from $180 to $270 annually, and businesses anywhere from $200 to $1,000 annually. And that's for the plan where the district is in charge of everything for the system. And then the district thereafter, after they have established compliance, they are responsible for inspecting tanks, drain fields, lift pump operation, maintaining records and history of the system, and to educate homeowners on best practice management practices.
So Amy, I've been talking to some people about the sewers, and a comment is, if I had my sewer inspected, why would I have to hook up, or why would I have to do anything? Because if it's inspected, it's working well. What do you say to that? I mean, when you go out and do a compliance check, what are you looking for? Standing water in the pipe?
So what we're looking for is the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency requires 3 criteria be met in order to pass an existing system, and it's going to be a watertight tank, and that all the covers and lids are intact and the proper size and weight, that the pumps work, and then for the drain field that it has proper hydraulic function, meaning that it's not surfacing sewage, that it's not holding sewage, or it's not close to filling, and then soil separation. You have to have 3 vertical feet of separation from the bottom of the drain field down to pass that soil separation part of the compliance. There is a rule that allows a 15% reduction or a 2-foot, but I am pretty sure it would not apply to anywhere in Cross Lake because you have to be over 1,000 feet away from a lake for that to apply.
Okay, in your experience working around the area, what kind of shape do you think things are in here? What's your opinion?
I guess I've only run into a few failures in Cross Lake.
What percentage do you think you've checked? I guess, what causes for something to get checked? What brings it up?
So,
Getting a permit?
if you need a permit,
Yeah.
if there's a property transfer, if there's a lot split or a lot line adjustment, those are reasons why. And then the other reasons would be triggered by a homeowner, like if they were having a problem with something. And just because they were having a problem doesn't mean necessarily that the system is failing. It could be a clogged pipe. It could be
Right.
a number of things. But in the last 3 years, I've probably done a couple hundred in Cross Lake each year. And I would say that the ones that I have done, I've actually only run across maybe 1 to 2 failures each year. But usually they're also permits. So if someone is adding on or building or doing something like that.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Amy? Daryl Shannon is waving his hand out there. You got to, okay, go ahead, Daryl.
No, he has to come to the podium.
Okay,
It has
come
to
up
be
and
recorded.
state your name.
Daryl Shannon, and I live on Shamrock Road on Lake O'Brien. And I've been a big proponent of sewer districts. I poked just about everyone on the council about it, and I sat on the Public Works Commission for 6 years. And the one thing I think you missed in explaining to people with Otter Tail County, they pump your septic system every 3 years, whether you want it or not. And it's all paid for as part of their fee structure, okay? And when you get it pumped, you get it inspected. That's the critical part of the sewer district process. I don't know how many people you live here year-round, I assume you all do. And the important thing about looking at your neighbors who are not necessarily permanent residents here, when was the last time you saw the honey wagon show up at their house to pump their septic system? You'll find that there are many partial homeowners up here that have their septic system pumped about every 10 years. There are people that have never had it pumped because if you don't pull a permit, you don't change the home ownership, there's no reason for you to have it pumped because there's no ordinance in Cross Lake other than permitting that enforces having it pumped. So I've been this person up here going, put in a sewer district. We can't afford the infrastructure to put pipes in so everyone can have a sewer. But I can tell you from the little lake that I live on that the algae bloom is worse than it has ever been. There are many reasons. One, there are more bigger boats stirring up the bottom. But there's more algae in my lake than there has been, and I've owned the house for now 15 or 16 years. So it's an important thing to think about. Either the active or the passive, like they do with Otter Tail, is pumped every 3 years. It's all done by the city. It's not necessarily actually a city employee that does it. They contract that I think Otter Tail every February.
Daryl, we got to close this up.
Okay, every February, Otter Tail goes out for bid for inspectors and pumpers, and they hire them for the year.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've spoken enough. But think about it, it's important.
Come on up, Dick.
It does.
My name is Dick Elmquist, and I live in Loveland Harbor, and I'd like to talk to you about the benefit of a sewer district.
Excuse me.
Real quick. If you could just talk into the mic, people outside can't hear you, so we gotta make sure that.
Okay, I thought it was close enough to it. How about now? All right, okay. Before moving up here, I lived on a lake between Mankato and St. Peter. We formed a sewer district, and we went to the county. County approved it. We got permission. We were fortunate enough that we were able to pump it into Mankato, which is 14 miles away. But we put in the sewer system. We had 100% participation that hooked into it. They assessed us at that time. I paid $10,000 to get hooked up. But the guy that was putting it in told us all, you want to change your house, you want to get a building permit, the county's going to make you put it in. And the machine's got to come back and find your line. It might cost you in the neighborhood of $25,000. We all paid for it. We put it in. And my neighbor says, well, I'm not doing that. My sewer system has never been failed. I said, Rick, your house value goes up. Just remember that if you got a city sewer system. Now, we talk about everybody living up here. What we had was a pressure system. So they bored in the line. They went under swamps, they went uphill, they went downhill, and they bored it all in, and we had a pressure system. We had a service road in front of our house. They came in, they went underneath the road in front of me, went underneath my garden, went underneath a big tree, and came out alongside of my house with a pipe. They took my old holding tank, they buried that, they busted it all up, they put in another pressure tank, and the pressure tank worked just like you would flush your toilet. When the tank was full, it flushed. So not everybody was using the line at the same time. Because we have a lot of people up here that are snowbirds, they aren't here, so there wasn't a lot of pressure on the line, but it worked. And within 2 years, the quality of the water in the lake changed.
Thanks, Dick. I guess the bottom line is that, we've talked, how long ago did we put the sewer in, Ted? 18, 20 years ago?
17.
17 years ago?
Yep. I just wanted to speak. I'm a member of the Otter Tail Sewer District. I have 3 properties that I have 3 systems on it. It went up this year to $85. But I love it. I don't have to worry about it. It's taken care of for me. So I just want to mention that.
And it's not necessarily hooked up to the main sewer line? It's, I don't totally understand what it is,
I have a septic tank just like a majority of people in the community here. I have a drain field. I pay my fee, comes off my taxes every year, the fee is. I guess I don't even notice it, I just write my check out and it's done with.
So a
And
good
they
thing
come
is
and they,
pump it out every 3 years,
and do the
keep
inspection.
an eye on it, do an inspection.
Yep. I'm in a passive system. I have a choice to go to the active system. If I went to the active system and my system failed, I've already paid my money and they'll take care of it. I wouldn't have to pay for it. Now, with the passive that I have now, if it breaks, then it would be my cost, so.
Okay, thanks. So part of the discussion about this is we all need to get educated on it. I think it's an important thing that we have to do to address the sewers. We've had Bolton Mink do a study in town. There's 5 corridors that we would like to expand the sewer on, and it's a total of 14 million for all of them. Is that kind of what the budget was, Phil? Are you familiar with that or no?
Yeah. Phil Martin with Bolton Mink. We did that study as a carryover from the previous report we did when directed by the council to examine how to extend the sanitary sewer to Moonlight Bay, because Moonlight Bay had requested to know, with their current problems with their septic system, their on-site system, was there the ability for the city to help connect them in as an opportunity? What we said to the city, and it was a question that was often raised, was how far do you expand the system? Does it make sense to expand the system? So what we did is we took a high-level look at it, and out of the whole city, we said there was only about a third of the city that we felt like, because of lot density, because of proximity to the lake, because of proximity to the system, that you would even consider expanding. With one of them being up to Moonlight, another one being towards Daggett Bay on a previously considered area, and then 3 other areas. So out of the entire city mass, we said about 1/3 of the city, it made sense, maybe about 40% of the city, you could conceivably do it with no timetable, just a priority of what you might want to consider based on the facts at hand, and one being, at the time, Moonlight Bay was looking at how to continue to treat their wastewater. And I think 14 million is probably true for
think that was
complete
kind of
build-out at this
for all of
point,
them.
but no time frame on when you do it and how far you go, but just at least from the input we got from staff and knowing the area, what had the highest need, with that being Moonlight first, and then over towards Daggett Bay based on a 2012
And a logical time to
study.
do it would be when we're resurfacing the roads.
Well,
We're
that's
doing-
the other part of this, is in addition to the study, we had also provided a pavement management study for the city, where we want to make sure that when the city is going to go in and look at repairing a road, that you're not repairing it and then coming back and within 3 days, knowing that or 3 years, knowing that a city street's going to go 20 to 25 years, and then dig it up. I mean, that's just wasteful of the,
Right.
the public funds. So that they should be married together so that you're making the best decisions going forward.
So I guess just to let the public know, we did a pretty good significant improvement to the sewer, and that was, I don't know if I should ask Ted to come up, but we just put bigger tanks in to spread the use out over time. I think we're at about 50% capacity, Ted, is that close? Yeah, right now. So we've got about, we could double the use of the sewer. 17 years old, I think that should be one of our priorities. We've talked about it for years, but I think we should move on it. And decide which one. We don't have to do it tonight, but it's a budgeting item, and how are we going to go? And Darrell, come on.
Darrell Swanson, Dream Island Road, and not an ex-mayor, former, right, Patty? You're always a former mayor, you're never an ex-mayor. We did, for those of you who, for a little history lesson, around the year 2000, Ted can make the exact dates, all of the systems in Cross Lake, as well as the Whitefish Chain, along with the county of Crow Wing, were all inspected. Those failings were brought up to code. At that time, we did talk about a sewer district for the city of Cross Lake as a follow-up item, because we knew that over time, people would not keep pumping their systems, et cetera. So maybe some 17 years later, it is now time for the follow-up, to have a sewer district for the entire city of Cross Lake. As you just heard, only about a third has enough density for the big pipe. We don't need a big pipe everywhere, but we sure could use a sewer district where we make sure that everybody is pumped every 3 years, and it's not that expensive when you put it over a broad base. And that is really going to help not only the groundwater, but all the surface water.
So how do we figure out what that is going to cost? I mean, do we ask Bolton Mink to help us with that, or how do we do that?
That's what we have experts for, yep. We
Yeah.
got to spend a little money to do these things, but I think it'll be money well. These are investments, so I think it's really good, and it will certainly help all the citizens of Cross Lake because of the property values. The only other thing I want to talk about is, for just 1 second if I could,
Okay.
There's different ways to pay for things. As you all know, the majority of the people that use the infrastructure across Lake are not permanent residents, do not homestead here. So the fairest way to pay for it is not by a user tax on just the people that are here homesteaded. The most fair way to pay for it, and we did try it back in 2002, was a sales tax, a small one, half a penny sales tax, because of all the visitors we have. And there's other places around here, like the city of Brainerd has a sales tax. Another Big one is Walker up the road, another big tourist area. They have a very large sales tax, one I don't think we would need. They have $0.015 sales tax to cover such infrastructure projects, so that it's spread over a large base of all the people that actually benefit from it. Because we all benefit from it, as well as all of our visitors and the people that aren't here full-time. That's my
Thank you.
pitch.
Please come up, Bob.
How are you? Bob Perkins, Cross Lake. We have a water quality task force in town, and one of the things that we're focusing on is sewer, septic issues, and I think it was Darrell that mentioned 17-odd years ago. Well, at that time, 25% of the systems were found in a failed position. So it's been 15-plus years, 17, 18 years, and if people aren't properly maintaining their system, that's the main cause for failure. So the state does have a statute, by the way, to maintain your system every 3 years. So you're not going above and beyond what's already expected of every person in the state today. So by implementing a 3-year rotation, you're just holding people accountable in our area. And it really does impact the quality of water, what we drink, what we play in, what people come up here. And I wasn't sure if Darrell was going to swat that hornet's nest about tax or not. But maybe to start first is setting up a committee, review what the needs are. Is it a sewer district? Is it clustering? Is it private systems, extending your sewer?
Who would you like on that committee with you?
You know, as far as volunteering, I didn't come to step up to volunteer, but our water quality folks have been working on this for some time. Gary sits on that. I'd love to see Dave or another member of the city come and join us. Invite a couple of other folks, whether that's Ted or someone, a consultant, whatever you'd like. And I think we could focus on it and bring a proposal back. It'd take a couple of months. I don't think it's a turnaround next week. But it's certainly something that the city should start with. And then back to the tax piece. If there's 400,000 people coming through this town or whatever that number is, a half penny sales tax makes a lot of sense. And these are the folks that are using it, enjoying the area. I wouldn't lay it on the seasonal or homestead folks.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Well, so we're not going to make any motions tonight on anything. We're just throwing this stuff out there. But I think to have that commission or have somebody do that, Gary, you're with him now. And I think Dave, of course, you're not going to be around for a while. But to be part of that water quality or that septic. And I guess if we could try to set deadlines on this stuff and move it so that we're not talking about the same thing in a year from now, would be a good thing. Does anybody else have any comments on this? Yep.
Mark Wessels, I live on East Shore Road in Cross Lake here. I'd like to commend the people who've come up here already. Seems like pretty much everybody's in favor of getting a sewer district. I was on Long Range Planning Commission back in 1999 when we first started talking about this, including the Otter Tail one, and how they have theirs structured. Ted and Amy are both familiar with that. It was a great idea. It just sort of died when we put in the sewer system, because back in those days we were talking about a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 got in and phase 2 just never came around again. Having a sewer district, there are a ton of people around here. I do real estate for a living. 2 or 3 years ago I sold a place, not in Cross Lake, but it has happened in Cross Lake too, where I sold them the house 30 years ago. Came back to him and asked him, when's the last time you had your septic pumped or inspected? He said, never had anything done with it in 30 years.
Yeah.
And the septic guy that came out to pump it said he had a little bit of a challenge with that particular tank. And so you got to know, with a house like that affluent, some of that is making that into the lake, and water quality is #1 in our area. I would be interested in being on a water quality committee, because like I said, I've been talking about this. And I have another guy in town here who actually designs public sewer systems for a living. Maybe we could talk him into He's an engineer. He might be interested in getting on a committee like that too, but I think it's important, not just the pipe going to the sewer. I think we need to expand that. You guys are already researching that, but I think a sewer district is a separate issue.
Well, it's a
And the-
quicker one. We could implement that pretty
And the cost for that
quickly.
is very minimal, if at all. I don't know if there is a cost to getting it started other than administrative. How do we start charging people? We're going to make sure you pump your tank every 3 years. I run into them all the time. Amy inspects quite a few. She got one for me this last year that didn't pass. There aren't very many of them that when they're selling or getting a permit that don't pass. But once in a while, when I go out to sell a house and I find out they haven't pumped their tank in 10 or 15 years, that scares me. And I know there's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah. Well, out of tonight, folks, is if we could get some commission, get some people involved, interested in looking into this stuff and get it started, you know? Not talk about it. Maybe with Bob or something, Mark, maybe you'd want to kind of, yeah. And I don't know if it's got to be an official committee, does it? I mean, I guess maybe we should know about it, know you're working on something, just so we know something's going on, but
You're going to have to make it official.
we do?
Yes,
I think so.
because you're going to have to pass an ordinance at some point.
Okay, so could we ask you to kind of, maybe if you could come next week, we could make it official at the meeting?
Perhaps you may want to go through the deal of filling out the applications, which you're supposed to do for these committees, et cetera,
Do we have
very
to?
quickly. I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't have to. Maybe you can waive it, whatever. I just signed up with Bob out there to be on the committee if we get appointed by the council. And then, of course, it's always good to have a deadline. Tell us when we need to be back with a report.
Well, if you guys could come back with
Otherwise, it goes
that
forever.
next week, I mean, I think we could do that.
All right, I wasn't volunteering, but here's the deal. We are working on this currently, so we can share the information that we have, and if you'd like to set up an official committee, the Water Quality Group would like to be part of that.
Okay.
So I'll help you with that, but if you guys set it up formally, we're in, but we have been working on it for about a year, so we can share what we have thus far.
So how do we start setting that committee up tonight?
I'm going to point to the city folks for that, but however you establish a committee, we'll join that committee, our group will.
Okay, well, I'm new at this too, so how do we do it?
Shar, that question's to you. Or Mike.
We'll put something together and have it to you next week at the council meeting.
Okay, and at that time, if they come, could they sign up for it, or is it going to be another month, or?
Anybody can come in anytime and pick up an application,
Okay.
so, for any committee.
I'm afraid that we're going to have to wait till March to get things going here, but.
That's
maybe
okay,
not.
we're actively working on it
Yeah,
right now.
I guess that's the bottom
We
line.
meet each month, so I don't think we're going to lose traction. And I picked up a couple of members for the Water Quality Group tonight, so I appreciate that.
Good.
But we're not going to go backwards on it, we're still moving forward, and the conceptual view that we have is, looking towards a sewer district or coming up with some level of accountability.
Well, I think the sewer expansion is going to come in time, but the sewer district seems like we could get going on it soon.
Yep,
And
I
that would
agree.
be a good thing. Thank you, Bob. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Okay. Let's move on to number 5, the administration building. I'm not sure how to start with this. I don't know. Mike, do you want to do a little thing of what you guys have? Should we work it that way, or should we?
Well, I think what I'd do is I'd ask Chief Lee and Chief Lohmiller to talk about their concerns. Now, for those of you that don't know, about a year ago, back on January 11th, we had a meeting somewhat similar to this, and we talked about a lot of different things. And one of the things that came up back on January 11th was Chief Lee and Chief Lohmiller presented the space needs assessment. So where I'm going with this, if this seems to be a surprise to people, it shouldn't be. we've had at least 8 meetings on this same topic
I don't think it is.
since
I think the
January.
public
So,
probably wants, I mean, that's what we're trying to do is
right,
update them.
right. And these were all public meetings with published minutes. So I guess I'd ask Chief Lohmiller to step up.
Or if you want me to do it, Chip, I'll do it. I mean, I'll just give a flyover view of it. So what we did is they hired 5 bugles. They went out and they did a deal. They came back. What we currently have is about 16 to 17,000 square feet in the administration building, police, fire, and administration. And they came back with a proposal that's 47,000 square feet. Now, this last week, I guess it went down to 39,000 feet. But the budget on it, the sticker shock, is pretty high on it. And it's probably between, 10 to 15 million bucks for it. So there's a couple things. The price is high on it. The need is also, to me, high on it. It's a big need. So I would like public input with police and fire to justify or explain or do whatever you got to do. But we need to decide what direction we're going in. Again, without kicking this around for 2 years or whatever. We need to.
Chip Lohmiller, Fire Chief here in Cross Lake. We've done this study. This is the second time we've done the study. The first one was back in 2009. The needs were the same. The facilities aren't large enough to accommodate fire and police and administration. Our city is growing. The needs and the services by the fire department, police department continue to grow. My annual report is with the council right now, should be online soon, shows that we ran 350 calls this year. In 2009, I think we did 164 or 184. So we're growing. The needs, we're trying to serve the community the best that we can. We have 28 members, 25 that are fire. We don't have room in our fire hall. For many of you that, it's kind of an impromptu here, but I could do a 3-hour informational meeting on what the needs are for the fire department. We're running out of space. We do not have an exhaust system that has cancerous carcinogens and things like that we come back from a fire. Our diesel exhaust doesn't get out of the fire hall. When we start the fire trucks in the fire hall, you can smell it in the city hall because we have a residential building here for a commercial space. There's a lot of things. We could be here all night if you wanted me to go down a list.
No,
So the needs that have been shown over since 2009, the needs assessment that we did this summer came back with the exact same needs. The town is growing a lot bigger. You have to remember that we have the 86-unit assisted living coming in. We have possibly an apartment complex coming in. It's going to tax my firefighters. In the summertime while everybody's playing, we're running on calls on Saturdays and Sundays. So, my health and safety for my firefighters is my #1 priority. And with the new materials, carcinogens are a huge deal in cancer awareness in the fire service right now. We have nowhere to decon that when we come back from a fire. Everything is together in the fire hall where you need to separate all that. So it is an issue to me, and we've been talking about it, it just gets put on the shelf. So we need to make some changes here in this facility, and hopefully we can do that soon.
Chip, I do have one clarification to ask you. There's 350 calls a year.
Correct.
Of that, how many are medicals?
We have 80, I think we had 82 actual fire calls, and the rest were medicals.
Okay.
240 maybe? Either way, the medicals are car accidents, things like that. 285 are medicals, and those are a different type of situations. But everything is increasing, whether it be fire or medical. We're still running on calls. We're still driving our own vehicles to calls. We're still responding to everybody's needs when they come here. So if you look at the amount of time that we're in going to calls, like I said, in the summertime, when I want to go out on my boat on a Saturday, we're running on 7 calls in a day.
You guys are doing a great job.
So it's taxing on our people. That's why we're trying to get more people involved. So we need to make changes for my firefighters.
So the question I have is how big, how many changes, what are we going to do with it? They did a study, 5 bugles came back. It's a beautiful facility. What direction do you want us to go in? Eric, you got something you want to add?
Eric Lee, Police Chief. I don't have much to add. What we have said has, we've said time and again, we're out of space. We don't have privacy for the people when they come in and make a complaint of a crime or are a victim of a crime. We don't have facilities to interview someone who is a suspect in a crime, a secure facility. Most of what I do in that office should not be public. If I have to bring a gun to return it to someone, I have to walk through this council chambers. That shouldn't be done. So what we need is we need to be self-contained, and with the information that we have can't be made public. It's not like we're trying to hide anything, we're just trying to keep data private. As Chip said, we're busier every year. I looked between Pequot, Nisswa, Breezy, and Crosby, and we were right in the mix of all of those departments, and they run with 6 full-time, 7 full-time, 8 full-time officers. We're running with 5 still. They all have facilities that are adequate for their department. We do not. To use Mark's analogy, basically of the guy who was here 30 years and never had a septic pumped, just because it flushes doesn't mean it's necessarily working the best. So we got to invest in the infrastructure of our departments.
So I just want to be clear, I'm not trying to pick on you guys or whatever, but the scope of what they're talking about is currently the police is operating in a 1,600 square foot area. So what the proposed is about 10,500 feet. So my question to it is, that's an awful big jump. So that's, I don't know.
Real quick, sorry, if I could real quick, 25 or 22 years ago when I got here, we were small. So we're not talking that all of a sudden, 2009, we outgrew things. We were outgrown in 1997 when we hired a 5th officer here. And at that point in time, we didn't even have a garage. The ambulance crew was in the garage that we're in now, which is just a 1-stall garage.
Bob?
So kind of an outsider looking in on this. I've seen the study and things like that, and it is a little questionable to come up with the size. And input is where they're getting it, right? So, and I'm not saying the fox is in the hen house here, but if you look at our needs and our growth, we have a pretty consistent trend here. And I would say we're clearly out of space here. I think there's a need. Both these departments do an excellent job in the community, although I would question about a week or so ago when I was pulled over, but besides that.
Did you get a ticket?
No, I was checking my mail, sir. But anyhow, so not to digress, but I think what it comes down to is what are the real space needs that we have, and what is the forecast? And I'm not sure if we've seen that, if you've had input from everyone or not. But looking at it and saying that you're going to go from 17,000 or whatever it was, it's up to 40,000. I think you have to sell that to us, the public, as to why you need that space, and make sure that we understand it for us to buy in on that too. And I know this is a campus today. It doesn't need to be a campus. It sounds like there's a need for the police to be in a separate area. However you slice and dice it, it's still, at the end of the day, as a community member, I want you to be more efficient, more productive, do more, and it should cost us less.
Can I
Sure.
respond real quick? The idea behind the study was to build a 50-year building, not to have something that you spend $8 million on, and then in 10 years, you're out of space. The idea was to build a building that would last 50 years. That was a building for the Cross Lakes future. It doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal. What we want is adequate facilities that the people who are paying for this, and one of the previous council meetings, there was talk about a 30-year bond on it. And one of the comments was, well, the people of the future, or the next generation is going to pay for it. Next generation is going to be using it. So, that's what we're looking at and trying to accomplish here.
Well, it is, but we're also trying to do a $14 million sewer project, and, these are real numbers and real things that are looking at us. Go ahead, Mark, come on up.
Mark Wessels again. Everyone not to be a little outspoken. 4 years I sat on the council. I guess that makes me a former councilman, not an ex-councilman. But these needs that were addressed with this study in '09 never came up to the council during the 4 years I was on this thing. I don't disagree that they need more space, but by comparison, they're originally talking 46,000 square feet. An acre is 43,560. So they're over an acre in a building compared to what we have now. That's quite a jump. And you can always design a building to add on when you need to. Housing studies that I've seen over my 33 years in real estate, the one thing they always fail to account for is that people do die, and then people sometimes move. We were supposed to be over 10,000 year-round population, I think around 12 or 15 years ago, in a study that was done in the 90s when this building was built. So when you start planning for 50 years, first off, I think that's impossible to do because so many things can change. Our water quality could change, drive people away. Taxes could go through the roof, driving people away. There's all sorts of things that can change to make a 50-year study or a 50-year plan very difficult to make it much better than throwing a dart at a dartboard. You can plan for 5, 10, 15 years, but the farther out you get from that, the more of a guess it becomes. And so for me, a 40,000 square foot building is much larger than you should need. This building is currently houses administration, planning and zoning, fire department, and police department. I think could be remodeled to get all the things that Five Bugle said the fire department needs and what Eric Lee says that we need. And by the way, my 4 years on the council, I voted for or with the fire department and the police department every time I had a chance. So it's not I'm anti. I just think that's a huge jump in size. So I think you could take this building and remodel it for substantially less than 13 to 15 million that they were talking before. And then possibly there's buildings next door that are for sale. Possibly you could buy one of those for administration, and everybody has more room, and taxpayers have more money in their wallet.
So we just made a little commission to look into the sewer districts. Dan, you got something?
Dan Heggerston, 35533 Sandpoint Drive. Mark hit on a couple things that I was going to say, so I don't need to regurgitate those with the purchase next door and a remodel. The one thing I guess I would ask is that potentially city attorney begin a negotiation next door just to be ahead of this in the event that that is an option. So something that I think
Don't you think that the city kind of needs to commit to go in that direction before we bother anybody with, you know what I mean?
Possibly, but I know you tried to make a motion a couple meetings ago. It wouldn't
Yeah.
even get a second. As far as, I think the motion was to purchase, which may have been, ahead of itself. But I guess one of the things from my conversations with Chief Lee and Chief Lohmiller and even a few of the city officials, that is not a direction that they believe. I don't want to speak for them, but, they don't want to see it go that way. I guess perhaps it's a time to publicly, weigh in on those if you want. The reasons being it doesn't, it shouldn't be remodeled. And I haven't seen any assessments. I think at the very minimum, a work group needs to come out of this. But remodel hasn't really been a big topic, so I don't need to, regurgitate what he said, but.
Well, we just kind of formed a work group for the sewer district, and I would kind of like to propose to do that. And I've thought about this, so I'm not just making this up as I'm going, but I would like to have a work group either out of the entire council, be a public meeting then, or a couple council members and get 4 or 5, 6 people out of the community. And actually exclude the city staff in the initial part of it, kind of just do a little discovery of what the community would like to do, and then come and blend them together. I mean, they've had 6, 7 months to work with 5 Bugles and come up with what they've come up with. So any comment on that? Go ahead, Chip.
Mr. Mayor, are we going to be a part of that, or you mentioned that it would just be the public doing that? or-
Well, I'd like to do an offset on the initial part of it and then have you come.
The problem that I see with that is that the public doesn't know the needs of the fire department or the police department.
Well, except we could go off of the study that we've gotten back. I
Okay.
mean, we could use that as an outline.
Okay.
Tom?
Tom Swenson, West Shore Drive. I was city administrator for 15 and a half years. I was here during most of the add-ons to this building. This building, I understand the state's, or the space needs for the police department, the fire department. Furnaces are 25 years old. It needs a total remodel, but I'm going to go in a little different direction. I know everyone seems to be hot to trot to spend $750,000 to $900,000 for buildings next door that are all chopped up. I don't know how you would use those. I would throw out the idea of, there's another property adjacent to City Hall, right across the street from where the ambulance exits on the entrance into Old Log Landing. That's $59,000. I would rather spend $900,000, buy that for $60,000, and put the other money into building a standalone police station over there. They could have their emergency operations center there, which is one of the things they're lacking here. You could give the fire department from this wall over. These aren't bearing walls. They can all be ripped out and remodeled for whatever they need.
And leave admin and P&Z there then?
Admin would get the police station. They could either use that, tear Eric's walls out for that little office. It's one big room. They could either open it up and have it, or you have it as another conference room in there.
Maybe you would like to be a part of that group, huh?
Well, I would be on it. And then, as far as the city council chambers, you've got area going out in back here that, between the fire department, if they still have additional needs, space needs beyond what they can do with remodeling the rest of the building, they could incorporate council chambers back that way with additional fire space on it. The other thing, I think at council chambers, I know we're talking about the next 50 years or whatever, but you've got a nice community center building. I don't think you need a council chambers much bigger than this, because when you have meetings like this would have been a good meeting to have at the community center. You know, open the curtains between those two rooms. You've got the video equipment up there. If you're going to have a bigger meeting, and if you had a bigger meeting than that, have it in the gym. But I don't think you need a huge council chambers. I think you could incorporate a council chambers with, if there are additional fire department needs, that could be part of that addition going out that way.
A meeting room or something, that
Yeah.
could be a multi-use room.
Or if you need dorm space or whatever, but get the police station out of here. There's almost an acre over there, if you did a 2-story building.
So-
You've already got parking and everything here for meetings.
Can I ask you a question, being as you were administrator in here? How did that ambulance garage get to be so big?
That was,
I mean, that's a little house over there.
yeah, and that's part of why I'm saying this. I don't think we need to, tear this building down and then incorporate the ambulance over in the front with stalls going out that way. I was able to get, I believe it was $60,000 some dollars from Crowing Power that went into doing that. They used to have the one stall that the police now has, and it's sort of incorporated, I
right.
believe, into the evidence area.
Yep.
And this little room, and North Ambulance was hinting that the space here was just inadequate and something needed to be done. Part of it is this,
But went from one extreme to the other, huh?
well, it didn't. I think the council at that point said, we're darn lucky to have an ambulance service here, and they wanted to locate a second ambulance. Part of the problem they had was they have male and female crews. They had one little room with 2 beds in it, and you've got males and females sleeping in the same room. So that was part of it. They needed more space, put in a second ambulance, and then we wanted to get them separated so they had their own
Okay, well,
little
that's-
kitchen and bedrooms.
It's
for
a
them.
nice area for them, anyway.
Yeah. So,
Well, you don't have to. I'm not picking on that. It just is a nice space. Come on up and speak.
Teresa Haynes. I work for North Ambulance.
Okay.
I worked for North Ambulance for 30 years, as well as a medical responder for Cross Lake Fire.
So you're not on your tiptoes there yet.
Thank you. The facility that we had was completely inadequate. We were trying to wash our dishes in a laundry tub in the garage.
Yeah, no, and I'm aware of it.
And we had men
I-
and women
yeah.
having to share a room because a lot of the people that work up here don't live here. So, and we work 24-hour shifts, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. So we need a place to be able to wind down and sleep when we can. Our run volume has grown tremendously over the last few years. This year alone, just in the Brainerd region, which includes Cross Lake, Pine River, Brainerd, our run volume is up over 400 runs.
Yeah.
So we're only getting busier. We need a place to be able to sleep and rest and cook a meal so we don't have to eat out all the time. That's why we ended up with our little, and it really isn't that big. I mean, we don't have a kitchen table to sit at. We have a kitchen area to cook with a bar, a sofa and a chair.
I'm not being
you know.
critical
I
at
know,
all of it.
I know, but I want the public to understand why we needed what we needed. We needed the the 2-stall garage so that we can have a second ambulance up here, especially in the summertime. You know, when we get
Yeah,
what we call an MCI, you know, you get a tornado or something comes through, those of us that live up here are able to jump on that second truck and work while the primary crew that was already scheduled is out running around as well. Because North uses the system status management.
We
So-
want you to be able to do that, no
Right,
question
so
about it.
I want you guys to know as well as the public to know why we needed the space. And it's adequate for us right now, we're doing okay, because we come and go a lot, but I completely understand why the police and fire need what they need. It's, especially the police department, dealing with some of the things that we've had to deal with. They
Thank
do
you.
need the space, folks.
I just want to reiterate what Teresa just said. It's not a Taj Mahal in the medical building. They have room for 2 ambulances, they have 2 bedrooms, and a nice little day room. Perfect for what they run, and they run 800 to 900 calls out of that room. I think that's the number. 800 to 900 calls out of that station right there, so.
And that's the design they're using for other.
Yeah, in fact, the design that we did, 2012, I think, they're using that layout at other sites that they own now.
Okay.
Dan Heckerson, Sandpoint Drive. I just want to say, I think it'd be a mistake not to have our chiefs and our department heads in a facilities work group. I think you need to have them there at least for a point of reference, and
Okay.
it's for acceleration purposes.
Well taken.
Darrell Swanson, again, Dream Island Road. You're the lucky ones. At the end of the day, you were elected, 5 of you, and you need to vote on what we're going to have for police and for fire. Now, how you get there is up to you. I happen to agree with Dan that I think the police chief and the fire chief are critical to be in whatever group, and there can be public input. But once again, it has to be, we have to know who's on these committees. So there has to be the application, like Shar said. And why are you put on there, why are you interested? And do you have any credentials in these areas, you know? And then you either accept them onto this committee or you don't. And then timelines. 2009, too long ago. You know, I think everybody knows something needs to be done. So once you agree upon this is the need, Then we're going to say, okay, now what's the best way to solve that need? Is it property next door, that side, this side, community center? Then we can have that. But you vote on it, we'll have a public hearing, so that the people know and you sell it to them, because they're the ones that are going to have to pay for all this. And then we go, and we go forward. But I'm just trying to get a little bit of push here, because I do think it's been too long that this has been going on. This new council has every right to ignore everything that's ever been done in the past. I wouldn't do that. I would take that under advisement, but you don't have to sign off on it 100%. But it's time to get the process rolling. So anybody who's
Daryl.
going to volunteer, get that application and let's get on with it.
Pat?
Pat Netco, Cross Lake resident. I agree with Dan and with Daryl that there should be a work group formed, and you have 3 bullet points here under number 5. I, as a person in the public, I want answers to these questions, and I don't want the fluff. I want to know the facts, and I want to know what's needs and what's wants of, should we remodel, should we relocate, should we separate fire and police? I think we've heard some great things here tonight. I think you absolutely have to have the fire chief and the police chief on your work group. They have all the information, they know the needs, they also have some wants. And I think you've heard a lot of good things here tonight, that a work group needs to be formed, and I would think that you could get that formed by next week at the council meeting. Get the applications, do whatever you can do to get that work group going, and then have a reporting process, and let's get something on the move.
Okay, Pat, I can't help but mention this, because 2 months ago at a council meeting, we had talked about getting a group together to look into the facility. And I volunteered very strongly, I wanted to be a part of it. Well, since then, nothing has been done with that, but we just got an email from the group, which is Mike, Ted, Eric, and Chip. So what I want to do, I don't mean to exclude them, but I want to definitely broaden it so that we get a good version of what we think we can afford to do.
Okay, so they
So-
formed their group, starting the process. So now
Right,
you
but,
need to
but
form a
months
group.
ago, we were supposed to form a group that was public, council, Chip and Eric, and do it, and nothing happened.
So do it.
So do it. That's what
Yes.
we're going to do.
Okay.
Absolutely. So again, this is a information, eye-opening meeting here. Next week, let's try to form a group. Anybody who wants to be involved in it, stop in and get a,
Those applications are available on our website also.
Okay.
So you can download those for a committee member. And just to address your comment on nothing's been done, when the idea of a task force was floated, I did respond to that. And we decided to wait until we had the final results of the study from 5 Bugles, which was in process.
I don't think that was a decision that the council made at that time, though. So who is we? You and Ted and Eric and Chip decided
I'll
to
take
do that?
responsibility for it.
Okay, but I mean, that is what we can't do. It's got to be the council, it's got to be the director and do that. And that's where I think the ball was dropped at the last
Well,
time.
we didn't drop any balls, Mr. Nevin. And the study was completed last Thursday. And as soon as we had a chance to look at it and review it, we distributed it to everybody. So now we're at the point where staff is looking for council direction to say, now that we've got some very preliminary information, we went through the process, a fairly lengthy process, to identify what spaces we didn't have that we should have, and what might that look like. And so a lot of it revolved around creating an adequate space for the police department, which I believe we don't have. We've heard comments on that tonight. We've also heard comments from our fire chief on, these are the things I'm concerned about for the safety of my firefighters, decontamination units. I mean, these things aren't for us to debate tonight.
No, they're
But we
not.
did ask 5 Bugles to evaluate our current facility and what would fit on this site based on the needs identified through that study. And that's what the study is presented. So based on those parameters, looking at a combination of this building or a different building, We heard comments on, what we're really saying is what would be adequate would be a commercial building rather than a residential type building, and I'm seeing Eric and Chip nod. So that's what the study was based on. And where I think the sticker shock came in was, on that was, what does a commercial building cost? You know, with, cement walls and non-wood frame type construction. And the costs have been verified. They're somewhere between $250 and $300 a foot. And so when you create those spaces that you don't have, you're making a huge jump. And so the information that the proposed conceptual plan was intended to try to fit all of those spaces that were identified in that needs assessment on the current site at the least most possible cost. Is that fair statement, Chip and Eric? Okay. So that's what we did. And so now I think you're at the point where staff is looking for direction to say, okay, we didn't like the results of the study because of the cost, but it didn't mean the need went away. And if you really think about it, we talked earlier about a sewer district and what would that cost a year for each taxpayer depending on a level of service. And that's forever. The cost of the building was similar to that, but that's to pay for it. So there's a lot of decisions like that we need to think about. And what would be helpful for us as staff would be to say, what direction do you want to go with? And
We'll establish
what are you
that next
comfortable?
week. We'll have some people come forward. We'll form a committee. We will be a part of it, so we will work together on it. And then we will develop the needs and the direction we're going to go in. And I will be a part of that.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay? And anybody else who wants to be a part of it, please come forward. Bob?
Just want to clarify one thing. So I said Fox in the hen house, and what I was saying there is that the folks that have the needs and the wants were basically the primary folks developing this budget. They're very critical to this process. I don't think they're the only voice you need, and I think you need to have other opinions and people to watch the checkbook or the farmer there with the shotgun, so to speak. Make sure that your egg layers are still there when it's done. But, the whole point of that was, just don't take input from the two people that are going
That's
to
exactly my
benefit from
point.
it.
Yeah.
Bring everyone in. So I'm not trying to exclude them. I want you to know that they are super critical to this process.
Yeah, I agree.
And to that end, that's exactly why the council directed us to hire a qualified, independent, third-party professional to lead us through that process.
If I may, Mayor, Chief Lohmiller and I would welcome anyone at any point in time to give us a call, contact us, come and see what we are working in right now. Understand where we're going with what we want to accomplish here. I mean, we really are not putting in fluff. From the initial building to the secondary building that we came up with, I cut out 2,000 square feet of my area, which, in my opinion, isn't going to be adequate for the future. But, we have to do what we have to do. But please, definitely contact Chief Lohmiller or myself and come in and we'll show you what's here.
You want to go?
Yeah, if I could, for the two chiefs, could you guys put together by next meeting a couple of dates that would work really good for you guys to put together, lack of a better term, tours of your facilities and be available to talk to people that have questions? Would you be willing to do that?
We can do that.
Okay?
It'll be quick.
On your end, it will be, not on Chief Lohmiller's. Okay.
Yep, come on, Dick.
I'm Dick Elmquist again, and I live on Loveland Harbor. And as a concerned citizen, I think your point about having these guys come up with a system and you had a company look at a building, but that's $17 million, and what's that going to do to our taxes? I think right now what we're looking at is there other options that might be available that could be done, would adequately give these guys space and save us some money as taxpayers? I think that's what you're looking for.
That's what I'm, yeah.
And I appreciate that.
But I mean, I
Thank
think
you,
we need
guys.
to,
I know you deserve more room, but as a taxpayer, I'm concerned about my taxes.
so we need people to come forward, be a part of the group, the new group, to look at options. And let's try to do that by next week. We got another meeting next Monday night. So get a form and fill it out if you want to be a part of it. Anything else on that topic? All right. Gary? Nothing? You guys good?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'll just sign up for some more things.
Good. Okay, the last thing that I have on the list is the purchase of the property, and that's been something that I have been pushing on for a while. A couple of reasons, like I said, I did that flyer, that questionnaire. 60% of the people who responded were in favor of acquiring that. It's about a 5-acre chunk over there. The asking price is $900, never negotiated it. And I think what that would do was give the ability to the city forever 8 or 9 acres of land to do with. I've heard several people comment about, it's too bad the city didn't buy the old Catholic church property for $500,000, 10 acres. And what I'm afraid of is that 15, 20 years from now, they're going to say, it's too bad the city didn't buy that adjacent property next door because we need space. I think acquiring that property and joining it with this would give us options. I think we could, at least on the interim, utilize the buildings, which would offset the cost of whatever construction we do, because we are going to have to temporarily move out of here. So, I mean, that's kind of my last breath on that thing. I'd like to hear a little public input, and, you know, I don't know if we're going to make a motion to try to negotiate. If we're not willing to purchase or don't see a need for it, there's no point in it. So, Doreen, are you coming up?
Here I am.
All right.
Pull the mic down a little.
Doreen Galloway, Johnny Street, Cross Lake. I've got a couple questions, and I don't know if maybe now is the time, but to me, it seems that number 6 on the purchase of that property would kind of be linked in with that new committee on needs and wants and
I think
where
it
we need to
will.
go. I think that they maybe would be more well-served combined. And on that note, since it's kind of connected to me also, something that I would like to make a point of is that, you know, no matter how Cross Lake changes and how our form changes and the things that we do, this road out here is the main drag. It's always going to be the main drag. I don't see, unless they put a bridge across the lake, I don't see that ever really changing. And me personally, as being a business owner and a resident here, I don't think the city offices need to be on the main drag, but I want my fire and police on the main drag. So I would like that to be part of this discussion also, is that we don't need to be on the main drag. Let somebody else come in and do something
There
with
has
that
been
property.
suggestions.
We have other
Administration and P and
places.
Z put it onto the community
We
center.
have a beautiful community center. We
Yeah.
can expand. There's lots of room down there. And I think that those are some of the things that this
This
group needs to
group needs
look
to
at.
develop and look at all options.
Yeah, and before anything goes forward. And I do agree that they do have to have input. But for one, I want to keep fire and police on the main drag across Lake.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Ted, come on up.
I guess I've heard a lot of ideas, a lot of different comments. One of the things that I thought of is, and some people may not like it, but, you know, this property next door across the road. Realign the road and adjoin it to this property. So everything's continuous building, continuous property. That's possible to do. We could realign Log Landing, move it farther to the north. There's one solution to keep the buildings attached and together. As far as the building itself, I'm not kidding you, we're holding some of this building together with caulk. The siding is falling off, it is deteriorated, it needs some help. I don't know what's underlying. I haven't torn anything off. We're just trying to maintain what we have until we get some clear direction on where to go. We fix the furnaces as they go, but we
Yeah,
do
there's
have,
no question, we need all kinds of work to it.
yeah, we need things
Nobody's
done here.
disputed
And
that
so
in any way.
I'm just throwing out these other ideas that to
Yeah.
keep the property contiguous. You know, we sold that property back when the money the city sold that old city hall for, the old fire hall for, was $200,000. They took that $200,000 and they built that piece.
Yep.
That's what it funded. Now we're gonna go and buy it back for $900,000.
Well, 3 acres have been added to that original chunk, and I think the school has been added since we sold it.
It
so
was, and that was about a
let's
$2
call it-
million project,
Yeah.
process for that back building, and plus the 3 acres.
I'm not going to defend the need for that schoolhouse.
No, I'm
but
not
it's
saying that.
there.
I just, the city fathers at the time decided that it didn't suit our needs anymore, and now we're taking and going backwards again and looking at it again. And that's the only thing I want to caution everybody. There may be something underlying that I just want everybody to be
So
aware
out of
of.
curiosity, when they sold that property, did they own this property at the time?
They had, the fire hall was here.
And
The
they
fire
were
hall-
still down at the old railroad, what is going to be now. That's where City Hall is.
Didn't Olog Landing own part of that as well, the 2-3 of those lots?
Part of that, yeah.
And he donated it to get
Something,
smaller lots
yeah.
back there.
Yeah, it was an exchange of some sort.
So whatever, I mean, it's still, we're only today and looking forward is all we can do. And it's an opportunity. If it's not a good one, we're not going to go there. No
Yeah.
question about it. But
And
it's not going to be there forever.
The only
That's-
thing else is I would love to be on in these committees. Anything that you guys are liking me to be, I'd like to be part of it, so,
Okay,
thank you.
good. I love it, Bob. I love it.
Should have stayed up here just for a little bit, but, so one thing, we have a group in town called Cross Lakers. Minnesota design team came to town. I think you guys are well aware of that. We've got about 15 core members, and we're really concerned about making Cross Lake design our future. And so what you're talking about right now is a bunch of folks that have preconceived notions as to what they should do with the building. You've got an opportunity to look at property, include it into your design, at least have options. If you don't look at this property, if you exclude it, you exclude your options. And I don't understand why you're not willing to look at it at least. So from the city folks, I mean, if you're pulling together your plan, this gives you a lot of options for the future. Now, if it comes up that your plan rules it out, you've made a good decision, right? By ruling it out prior to bringing it to a committee, you're not making a decision. That steering committee was driven by someone else. So I think, you owe it to yourselves to at least look at it. Put it in, like Doreen said, you've got maybe it out of order on your agenda here, but include it in the other plan. Have folks look at it holistically. You have a lot of options, a lot of needs, but by excluding it now, you're driving yourself into a corner. And Mark will probably tell you they're not making any more land in Cross Lake.
Yeah.
He'd love it if they were, because his business would improve, but there's only so much land here. It's 36 square miles, so the population's not going to go to 100,000. You don't have to worry about that. We're landlocked a little bit by lakes and everything around us. So I do think you have to include it in your plan.
Yep.
You're saying both properties, am I correct? But 'cause you've
Everything
got-
that's
you got the
brought up
5
tonight,
acres
you
and the-
asked, you asked for input and feedback. I think you have to take that all now and go to committee. You've had a bunch of ideas thrown at you. You shouldn't come into this with a decision already and not take our feedback. You should take all of these, write them down, put them out there, evaluate them,
I
and
want
then
to
take it
go,
forward.
I want you to come and be part of that, I mean, all of
You
you.
already signed me up for one. I'm
I'll
just saying-
work on you. I'll
I'm
work
just
on
saying,
you.
we're expecting you guys to make a good decision with the feedback that we've provided you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
So make number 6 actually part of number 5.
Yeah, I think they would, it's still available, so I think why wouldn't we?
But I
Yeah.
think what 2 different people have
Yeah.
commented on, then explore the land on the other side as well.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is more affordable. It's probably a half acre or something.
It's 1 acre, right? It's
1
just
acre.
shy of 1 acre. There's 2 lots.
Right, and each lot is approximately an acre?
Half,
Okay, so the two lots combined would be an acre.
correct.
So, and the two lots combined are 140,000 or something? I mean, it's 59 each.
No, the one property would be a lot more expensive than the other one. The one where the sign is should be far less than the other
Oh,
one.
okay, well, whatever, but it should be part of it, no question. Okay, is anybody else want anything else? Please, come on up.
Doug Oster from Cross Lake over on County Road 16. I don't know if the public knows, but that building was inspected by Craig Farabin from High Tech. I think I was here at a meeting a few meetings
Yeah,
ago, and they
right.
said that building structurally looks okay. He can't see any issues. So, you know, if everybody thinks it's just going to blow down in the next storm, we had a pretty good
I guess,
contractor
I mean, that's a
look at
good
it.
point to tell a lot of the public who don't know that, is
Yeah.
that building was looked at, and
He's a very competent engineer, and I trust him. He does a lot of commercial work around here. He looked at the building, said he didn't see any big issues with that. I really trust him, so it's just my input, and
yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm glad you said that.
and also, you know, a lot of people are sitting, a pretty sharp businessman down that owns CNC Boat Works, that you're not actually buying the building, you're buying the property, you know, so.
Yeah, so the question is, it's overpriced property.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
negotiate, yeah. If somebody hasn't bought it by now.
No, I know.
Yeah, thank you.
We need to decide to go in that direction, and then we could go there, and we haven't to date done that. Okay, number 7 is funding options. How do we pay for all this?
Approximately, we're paying for how much? I'm hearing 14 million on sewer, and I'm hearing,
Well, it's 14
and
million,
I'm
and let's
using it
say
as a-
that's over 8 to
yeah.
10 years,
Yeah.
I don't
but
know
then
what this.
we're looking at another 12, using it as a give or take number, 12 million to 13 million on the other end.
If
So
we
we're
were gonna-
technically looking at $27 million, plus ongoing costs to run the city. I know the fire department and the police department both need to purchase, and I mean, it's need, it's not want, equipment as they move through. Do we want to consider any of that at the same time?
Well, I know if you build a house 3 times the size, you're going to have more kids. Or why would you do it?
I'm beyond that, Dave.
Well, I am too, I wouldn't do it, but, come on, Darrell.
Darrell Swanson, I'm just going to pitch the sales tax again. We tried it 17, 18 years ago. Attorney person here is going to have to come up to see whatever laws have been changed. It's up to the state of Minnesota, at least then, to approve whatever sales tax we want to have approved. That's collected, and you have to have the public hearings and the whole thing, and then you elect somebody to go down there, or a small group, and make a presentation to the legislature. I happen to be that person who made that presentation way back when. I think it died in committee. I think they thought we were too wealthy of a community at the time, and that we should do some other kind of tax as opposed to sales tax, because maybe they were looking to increase the state sales tax. So you're competing with the state when you do these things, but they're legitimate. We have areas around us, as we mentioned before, that have sales taxes right now to pay for such things, and we certainly have the needs, as we have heard tonight. One other thing I would like to point out is there are telephone funds from the sale of the telephone company. And those belong to the taxpayers. The telephone company was owned by the taxpayers. If those funds aren't going to be used for the city, I believe it might be a law in the state of Minnesota that they might have to be returned to the taxpayers through tax rebates of some kind, because those are our funds. So you have those that you could use to help offset these or make down payments or whatever, and I think you've already done that a little bit. You use some of those telephone funds, but they're there to be used.
But we need to look into any time frame or anything with those too.
Yeah. I don't know, Brad, what the latest is, how long you can sit on funds before they have to be refunded to the taxpayer. I think there used to be a time limit of some kind, and so you should
Do you know
put them
anything
to-
about
to
that,
good
Mike?
use.
So we really should look into that.
Yeah.
At least
I
scratch the
think there used to
surface a
be,
little
but my
bit.
memory's not as great as it used to be, but I think there, when the city has things like that, they just can't sit on those funds forever. They have to be put to use or refunded to the people who they own, belong to.
Half a cent, what kind of revenue was that?
Well, that's the thing we need to look at again, because, oh, yeah, we had all kinds of numbers. Yeah, Dan, but, no. And that was so long ago, it would be inappropriate at this time. because
Beers were
look what
probably
we have now.
75 cents apiece then. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many more people that come to Cross Lake that enjoy this community, but that is something that the council needs to direct a study on. Whether it's Mike that does it, whether it's somebody else, but Brad obviously has to be involved because he has to say, these are the hoops you have to jump through to get to the legislature and to pass it. There has to be a public hearing, as always. Remember, Tom, we did all of these steps. Tom might be the good one. If you kept all those records, you'd know exactly what we did and how much we could raise, and it all made sense, and we went down there, and we made what we thought was a pretty good presentation. Senator Rude was Senator Rude at the time, and she was very supportive of it. But it just didn't go for whatever reason it didn't go. I don't even think it got out of committee. But we can do it all again because it makes a lot of good sense. So that's what you need. You need legal input. You need input on how much a half a cent means or a quarter cent, whatever it would be, based upon our best guesses. Okay?
So could we ask Mike and Brad, could you guys look into anything by next week? I don't know how you'd find out revenues, I don't know.
Well, I've done the
how-
process before and gone through it and gone to St. Paul, so that's not hard to, I don't know, I have no idea what the generation would be. You'd have to find, but that's not, we can figure out the data on that. But
Part
the
of it too
likelihood
is the
passing,
funds
that's,
that
you
we're
know.
sitting on from the sale
Well,
of the phone
that's,
companies.
that's obvious that you're gonna be spending those with one of those projects. Another funding source we haven't talked about yet is not with the city hall, but with the sewer. You typically would combine not just tax revenue funds, but also have an assessment project.
Right.
Which would also,
Right.
so it wouldn't be 14 coming out of our budget. I mean, part of that would be paid by the landowners.
Right.
So that would greatly reduce the 14 million.
Well, depending on how aggressive we got with the
Well,
assessment.
even if it's half, I mean, that's $7 million, I mean,
Yeah.
so.
There's another little thing, and I don't know, Tim Berg, I saw an email from you. Do you want to come up and touch on what you were going to touch on? There's potentially another source out there hiding in the weeds, huh?
Yeah, so I'm Tim Berg. I live at Bayview Lodge Resort in Cross Lake. Recently, it came to my attention with VBRO and Airbnb, the city of Pequot recently made an ordinance on December 4th. And basically what it is some regulation with VBRO and Airbnb. I think that you all got the packet, hopefully that was emailed to you earlier. And in that packet, that I'll just point out real quick, is that they regulated the amount of time within a year that a person could rent their home out as a VBRO. And that was a total of, I believe, 4 weeks a year, which also had to require a permit from the city. So if we're looking for an additional source of income to support some of these projects, that could be a new source for us. I bring this up, number one, as a resort, you know, this has been an issue for us, and we've had to come to terms, and we're partnering, and we welcome VBRO home rentals into our Whitefish Area Lodging Association. Currently, the last I looked, I know there's well over 50 VBRO homes in the Whitefish chain area alone. So one could actually state that this could be some sort of a protection right as far as neighbors and trying to find a way to protect their properties and their property values. It could also maybe be a way of the city protecting itself for public safety. So parking is always something that we're required to have. We have to have so much parking based on how much space we have available for our guests. We can only have so much occupancy per cabin. The city of Pequot addressed many of these issues in their ordinance that they passed. And I'm just asking the city, it sounds like you guys have a heavy workload ahead of you with the septic and the buildings here, but I'm hoping that within the next year or so, we can actually work and maybe align ourselves with the city of Pequot to maybe create an ordinance just so there can be a level playing field and protect ourselves.
Well, so there, you said there's 50 of them on the Whitefish chain, and is that just the ones that are part of your association, or?
No, as far as I'm understanding, we have about maybe 3 or 4 who are paying in to the Whitefish Area Lodging Association. And by law, if you are renting your house in the Whitefish area, you actually have to collect a 1% tax fee, which goes to marketing for the entire area as a whole.
So 1% goes to your group.
Our group, correct.
And are you allowed to add like another 5, 6, 7, 8% that goes to the city?
So this is something that we've been working with, and it's Pandora's box. We've been in deep discussions with the city of Jenkins. So with that 1% that's collected by resort or lodges, we pull it together, and it can only be used to market resorts and lodges. So the city actually voted on this years ago, way back in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. Each city had the vote to allow resorts and lodges to collect this tax. So we're currently collecting 1%. We could, I believe, go all the way up to 3% if we wanted to. I think that would require permission by each and every city, such as like Pine River, Jenkins, and Cross Lake.
Well, I think aside from what you're doing, I think the city has probably got an opportunity to tax or regulate those VRBOs also.
That's correct.
And that could be a substantial revenue.
It could be substantial. And it's something, you know, this has been going on for years, and it's fine. Like I said, it's something that we've had to just come to terms with. But I can tell you, you know, as a seasonal resort, we're open from the beginning of May through the end of September. So we have, you know, roughly 12 weeks there to work with. But really, all we really have is the third week in June all the way through the second week of August. Because the first week in, you know, June, schools are still in, you still got sports, and the second week of June, you still got graduation parties going on. And then, you know, come the end of August, you got college kids going back to school, you got schools starting, sports are starting. So we don't expect to be all that busy the first couple weeks of June or the last 2 weeks of August. But of our bread and butter weeks, I can tell you, I'm struggling. This is going to be the fourth year right now. I have 7 cabins still available for that 4th of July week. This never used to be the case. But what happened was 4 years ago, we had a family who took 4 cabins. They went to VBRO.
Yeah.
They're not the only ones. And I can tell you it works the other way around, too. We've had people go to VBRO and they come back. So I'm not out to get VBRO. As a group, Whitefish Area Lodging Association, we've reached out to many of these people that we know are renting their houses out to VBRO, asked them to come and be a part of our group. We've gotten very little response from them.
But you're a commercial entity operating your resort, right?
That's correct.
And any VRBO is a residence not paying any kind of commercial rate, or they're just operating out of their house.
And that's based off where you homestead. So a lot of these people, you know, there's only 50% of us that actually spend, you know, the entire year up here, you know, if that. And so the rest of these people, and God bless them, because we welcome tourists from all areas, and we don't generally care where they stay, but, you know, we advertise a lot of these homes that are for sale, you know, come on, buy a house up here. You know, you can supplement your house payment by renting your house out for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. You know, it's very simple. I'm just asking, since the city of Pequot got the ball rolling, I'm hoping that the city of Cross Lake can, again, join them and, you know, potentially see a new source of income.
Yeah, well, I think the city, you know, it's a small city, and we support a lot of people, 20, 30,000 people or whatever. I think we need people to contribute in a lot of different ways to help us to be able to afford this stuff. Or there's a percentage of us that aren't going to be able to afford to be here. You know, we'll get taxed right out of here.
That's true.
So,
As a small business owner, again, you know, it really only affects resorts. You know, we're down, I think, to about 3 resorts and 2 lodges in Cross Lake. And this town, you know, primarily, you know, initially was, you know, we were built off logging, and then it became a tourist town. And now it's, you know, it's this town, like, I don't see that we are needed nearly as much as we were when my folks first moved here 30-some years ago, because there's so many different opportunities for places to stay now. So we're just, you know, I'm just hoping that you guys can help us level the playing field and look out and find a new revenue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Any other comments on that? Come on up, John.
Yeah, I'm John Gleason from Cross Lake, and I don't want to, you know, go back too far here, but I want to talk a little bit about the sewer just one more time. And I've heard a lot of needs here from the police department, the fire department. It seems absolutely legitimate and something needs to be done. Why does the sewer need to be expanded? It sounds to me like we have the capacity, so let's expand.
Why does it need to be?
Yeah, what are the needs? What are the great needs there? Because we're talking about raising taxes. Why is this need so great at this time?
Well, it's because it's been sitting there for 17 years untouched, and if you don't start doing it at some point in time, you're never going to do it. What do you have it for? The more people we have hooked to it, the more people we have supporting the sewer. So we collect money monthly.
Well, and my question is, and I'll.
Come on up, Nick.
What I was going to ask also is that, we're talking about a district for sanitary sewer, and that seems to me to be a solution for people who aren't getting their septics looked at and that type of thing, so the impact is going to be far less because of that. And since there's so many things on the plate right now, we're trying to figure out how to raise taxes to cover all these things. Maybe we need to identify the things that are the greatest needs and stick on that topic and work through those details before we throw everyone on the plate and no one's happy in the end.
I guess my only comment to that is, like I said, I put that little flyer out, and the biggest one was expand the sewer. So I think in 165 responses out of 1,000 probably isn't a real accurate number, but I think a good portion of the people in this community have got a water quality issue, and they'd like to see the sewer. And if there's a way we can figure out if that's true or not, I mean, that'd be great too. I don't know. It's the only thing I can base it on.
Was there a gentleman that had a?
Well,
Mick.
One comment I'll make is, if I can make a comment.
Come up.
Cross Lake, especially back in where I live, which is one of the districts that they're talking about expanding to, we have sugar sand. And the water goes down so fast, it doesn't have a chance to do anything, and our drain fields fail regularly. Okay? And especially the ones that are not checking theirs, it's a problem.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mick Cheetah, Cross Lake, and I'm on the P&W. The reason that we voted to extend the sewer down to Moonlight Bay is because they're in dire need of a sewer system. Their septic system is failing. The car wash across the street, both are huge contributors to the business community, and they're in dire need of the sewer system. So that's why we, as a committee, sent it to the city council to extend that to Moonlight and Moonlight Square because of the need, the dire need. You can't put a septic system on those properties anymore. So,
And one thing about expanding the sewer system, and this is my concern, is that it's very narrow how it impacts the landowners that are on that line that's getting improved. It doesn't necessarily affect the whole city. The biggest brunt is bared by the landowners that are along that sewer line. And I think there's great need, the sewer needs to get expanded. But I think when you look at doing this thing with water quality, you also have to look at how you assess, how you tax, how you pay for it from the people who are getting affected the most. If there's 3 spurs, 1 spur gets put in first, and these people bear the brunt, and then 10 years down the road before anything else happens, it just seems out of balance to me.
No, it needs to be scheduled. You need to have a commitment to do it. But I mean, that's where the conversation about the tax too. If we could get a tax implemented and have it dedicated just to the sewer, it's going to greatly reduce the hookups, and it's going to greatly reduce that. And I mean, nobody's got any answers to any of it.
Yeah, and I don't want to take any more time other than the fact that you look at the police chief and the fire chief, there's a need here that affects the entire community. Everybody's affected by that. A sewer system doesn't affect the entire community, I think, at the same impact level. So that's what I'm saying. I think we need to concentrate our budget and what we're going to spend and what we're going to invest into to the greatest needs up front first, instead of taxing crazy numbers just to pay for everything at one time. So that's just my opinion.
Thanks, John.
I think we need to cut him off.
Good evening, Bob Perkins, in case you haven't met me before. Just the sewer district part is really a combination of all of that. It's not about expanding the sewer. It's about evaluating all of the properties that we have here and making sure you have the right system in place. That could be a septic system that you have today. But it's about the accountability of it and the combination of all the factors. So if you have failing systems, we want to update those. If the water quality goes down, the number of people coming to this area goes down.
Yeah.
The water is what attracts folks, and the reason why we have people coming here is for the water. That's the reason why we need fire and police. They're all tied together, but it starts with water quality. But the sanitary system in the district, That's something that we're asking to be evaluated first. The extension that you've already looked at and I believe approved, I'm not sure if that's been approved or not, but, you know, that was necessary based on the decisions that you made, looking at Moonlight, looking at the car wash, all the things there, the property that exists there, it makes sense. But we're talking about, why not do this for all of Cross Lake? You know, make sure that every system out there is working properly and maintained.
Totally agree with you, Bob.
But it's not the same, it's not just extended.
How did we get back on sewers, huh? I guess where we were is how we're going to pay for these things, and we kind of got off on that. Does anybody else have any other comments to make on that?
What are the city reserves right now?
Mike, do you have anything close to that? I would guess, but do you have any accurate on that?
Are you looking for a cash balance or a number?
Was your question like the company?
We have 5 million in reserves, 7 million,
Yeah.
2 million.
Yeah.
We have roughly, our total cash balance is around $8 million. Most of that consists of the money we receive from the phone company.
Okay.
And it's okay to be financially healthy. It helps make some of these decisions a little easier to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we getting a good return on it?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good.
And I'd be happy to share that with you anytime.
Okay. Anybody else? God, are we going to go to public forum?
Well, could we recap first? I kind of get the feeling there's 3 committees that we're looking at putting together next week.
Yeah.
If I could kind of clarify it so I understand it in my head.
Well, the sewer extension
Yeah.
was the first one we talked about. I think we got to get a group put together to look at administration, fire, police.
Okay.
And I almost think that group is going to kind of double up on the possible purchase of the property next door.
Okay.
Aren't they going to kind of go
They're
hand
going
in
to end
hand?
up
Yeah.
intermingling, like it or not. Yeah. But the third one, I think, is Mike and Brad doing some research. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I don't think you need a committee for funding sources.
No, I'm just saying doing some
Yeah.
research. So it's probably 2 committees, but one.
Prioritize what you want and
Yeah.
what it costs, and then we can figure out how to pay for it, but.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and to look into the finances from the phone company, whatever, just make sure we're covered. We should know if it's got to go back, we should know it's got to go back, or if we got to spend it, or whatever. Daryl?
I'm on number 8.
Okay.
Constructive comments?
There you go.
All right, are we on to that?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and city council members, I respectfully request that you revisit the idea of Skype. I think that there's an obligation on the part of anybody that runs for public office that they attend meetings unless they're sick. I think there's an expectation on the part of the public that when they voted for people to be at meetings and not on a phone. Maybe you all disagree, but the Skype doesn't work very well, I don't think. So if it could be revisited, you might want to just say, okay, we'll just go ahead and do our Skype stuff, but if you don't have enough for a quorum, don't have the meeting.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Because this face-to-face is very important. And I don't want to pick on Dave Schrupp, but Dave, you're kind of overall the meeting here, and we get to see you, but, you know, I think it's difficult to try to interact with a screen as opposed to interacting with all of you
I totally
one-on-one.
agree with you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll look at that maybe next week. Up and coming. Okay, well, I don't think I have anything else. If anybody's got anything.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Oh, one more, come on up, yeah.
I am a little
bit. This is Peter Graves. I'm on Sugarloaf Road. I'm a little bit hesitant to come up here because I think I'm going to put on a committee.
I think you already are, aren't you?
I was on the dog park, and we're almost done with that one. But if that is the case, I'm going to nominate Bob to serve.
Thank you.
I did want to bring one other issue up to the committee at this point and to the community that was coming here, and that has to do now with the shift and talk about pickleball, which is a recreational activity here. Just bringing the awareness up a little bit. We've got over 100 people that in the community and people that come to visit the community have signed up through the community center to play pickleball and pay a fee to do that, as opposed to, there's about 25 people that signed up for tennis. We've got 4 gorgeous tennis courts out there, and we have been able to use 2 of them with some additional lines painted on them to meet the needs of the pickleball community. But it is not dedicated courts. And what the city has done, what the community center has done in their long-range planning, is to plan to put in 6 dedicated outdoor pickleball courts. And in fact, has already flattened the land and set that up for us so that we could begin construction of that this spring, this year. So we're great, looking forward to that. That's fantastic. The concern I want to bring to the committee here is that what I understand is put in the budget for that from the city is $30,000, and an expectation that the community will be able to raise a matching amount of another $30,000 to cover the cost of that. I've done some very preliminary examinations of what does it cost to build a pickleball court, and it's between $20,000 and $40,000 per court that you build. So what we have in the planning right now is only going to cover the minimum costs for about 3 courts, and what we're hoping to do is have 6. I think the committee, and this is a steal, guys. Here, I'm not talking 14 million and 19 million or 900,000. I'm just saying to the city, I think that we want to have courts that are dedicated for pickleball. It meets a need. It attracts people to this community. It is something that a lot of people in the Twin Cities know about Cross Lake because they know about our pickleball.
Mr. Graves, let's bring that up at another time and get into it deeper.
And I'm more than happy to do
Okay.
that. I just wanted to use this open forum
Yeah.
to raise the issue and not have a
We're
discussion.
trying to kind of
just-
stick with what we came here for, and that is another topic that we need to talk about.
Okay.
Put it on the, next week if you want, or a public forum or something, but, Dick, come on. We don't want to leave anybody hanging.
Dick Elmquist. I know there's a lot of interest in pickleball, and they want to take over the tennis courts, but I think we got to be careful on that. There was a committee that was formed that went out selling T-shirts like crazy and raised a lot of money to build those tennis courts. They also got money from the National Tennis Association to build those courts. John was generous in giving you 2 of them, but I think we got to be careful about taking too many of them out of there. And I've asked John I sit on the PAL committee, and this subject has been brought up for 6 months, a year. And I've asked John, what are the people doing? Are they out raising money to build these pickleball courts like the tennis people did? No, they're not. Yes, you pay a fee, but you're not raising money.
We have not started to raise money yet.
Okay.
We are preserving the tennis courts for next year.
This is not about pickleball, folks. This is not about pickleball. All right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.